If you clicked this thinking animal-based eating is just another fad or some extreme carnivore trend, I get it. I did think the same thing at first, but after a decade of balanced diets that left me heavier, hungrier, and more confused than ever, thinking that my body was broken, I tried it. And honestly, it changed everything. For years, I believed that what every nutritionist, doctor, and fitness influencer told me, eat whole grains, load up on complex carbs, fruits, and veggies, and keep your fat low because you don't want a heart attack. Keep your protein moderate and your meals balanced. Doesn't meat cause cancer? Always add more carbs to your food because your body can't function without them. And animal-based, that sounded extreme. It sounded even dangerous. Where are your vitamins? Where is your fiber? Won't you die of a heart attack because of high cholesterol? Except those balanced diets were unknowingly keeping me in a blood sugar roller coaster, constantly hungry, battling joint and chronic pain. I was stuck in a cycle of losing weight and regaining it all over again until one day I just got so desperate, I decided I'm going to try anything. So I started eating mostly meat, eggs, butter, animal fats, cutting out most plants, sugars, grains, and definitely seed oils. And suddenly the things that never worked before started working. So today I'm walking you through the real pros of animal-based dieting, like the day I woke up and all my chronic pain was gone, and the cons like gagging on fat for the first week, dealing with social situations and having to relearn everything you thought you knew about healthy eating. Plus the discovery that finally explained why every plant, grain-heavy, balanced diet before this one just kept me completely stuck, thinking that my body was broken and incapable of losing fat. So I've been eating low carb, animal-based for over a year now, sometimes keto, occasionally full carnivore. I've worked with a metabolic doctor. I've lost 12 kilos. I've kept it off. I've helped my mum even reverse her prediabetes and lose over 10 kilos without even exercising, because she's in a lot more chronic pain than even I am. And I spend hours every single week researching the science behind why this works. So this isn't me telling you what to do, it's me showing you what happened when I finally tried something that was different after a decade of doing everything right and following the traditional diet standards and getting absolutely nowhere. Let's start with willpower and mental strength, because this is what kept me in a yo-yo spiral for years. And here's the thing that absolutely blew my mind. After my body adapted to animal-based eating, I stopped being hungry. Like, I genuinely stopped. I would drive past McDonald's at 3 p.m. I hadn't eaten all day, not on purpose, just wasn't hungry, and feel nothing. There was no cravings, no forcing myself to drive past the drive-thru and go home and eat my meal prep. I just felt really neutral about food. And for someone who spent her entire life thinking about food 24/7, when's my next meal? What am I eating next? Did I pack a snack? This was absolutely life-changing, and my entire world no longer revolved around eating food. And the weight, it just fell off easily. I lost almost a kilo every week for 2 months straight. That's 2 pounds a week. I wasn't even exercising that much because of my chronic pain, and my body just let go of the weight. And I know that everyone says it's unhealthy to drop weight this fast, but I wasn't even trying to restrict the amount I ate. I was eating until I was satisfied, and I was just avoiding constant snacking. I honestly believe I was in such a state of inflammation that when I fixed my diet, my body could finally do what it needed to do, which was reach a comfortable set point pretty quickly. Even when the weight loss slowed down to a more sustainable pace, I wasn't doing anything extreme. I was not tracking or measuring or only eating 1,200 calories a day. My body was continuing to regulate itself, and this is where it gets really interesting. Like I said earlier, I thought I was broken. Like, I genuinely believed that my metabolism was destroyed from years of yo-yo dieting on those classic low-fat, low-calorie, like restricted plans. But it turns out I just needed to stop spiking my insulin every 2 hours. But before I explain why that worked, let me just tell you about the biggest pro of this whole experience. If you watched my previous video, you would know that one day I got out of bed and I realized that like my feet didn't hurt. I looked like an idiot just like pacing around my bathroom on the cold tiles, because for months my feet, my ankles, my low back, especially my lower back, had been screaming at me every single morning. And I mean just physically limping around while my body came to terms with being awake. I thought it was just from being heavier, and I thought maybe I needed different shoes. Maybe I was getting old and this was just life now. but it was all gone. Like the inflammation in my joints that made me feel like I was 60 years old was just completely gone. It lasted like for about a month until unfortunately I traveled to New Zealand and my diet temporarily became more flexible. But during this month, I started realizing that I could walk for long periods of time without getting exhausted. And to a horse rider, that's amazing because we do tons of walking in addition to riding, just as a result of our sport. So I could exercise and ride without my knees screaming at me the next day. I felt like I got my 20-year-old body back. And here's the thing, I had pretty low hopes like on the pain side of things with my hypermobility issues. And at the time, I was really just trying to lose weight, but I'd heard rumors that pain levels improve on the animal-based diet. However, I was pretty skeptical. But the complete removal of pain was an incredible, shocking side effect. And honestly, it ended up becoming my why. Because once you know what it feels like to not be in pain every day, you don't want to go back. But I'd be lying if I said that this journey was all sunshine and effortless weight loss. But there was some genuinely rough parts that I should be honest about. So let's talk about the stuff that kind of sucked until I got used to it. First, eating fat kind of made me want to throw up in the beginning. I'm not joking. I went from eating super low fat, high carb, everything like exactly the way that my mum would be, like very like Weight Watchers based, to suddenly putting tablespoons of butter, olive oil, and like fatty meat in my meals, and my body was just like, absolutely not. It took time to like retrain my palate. The weird thing is that I remember being a kid and absolutely loving fat. Like I remember turning to my best friend at the table when we were eating bacon, and I said to her, I was like, oh, like I don't like the bit that's the meat part. And I'm like, I just really want to eat the fat. But my mom was like, oh, don't eat the fat. Like that's going to just clog your arteries. No, no, no. You're going to get fat by eating that. And so I'd have to like cut off the fat and be like, okay, I don't like it. And then over time, it just got stuck in my brain that no, fat is bad. You can't eat fat. That's disgusting. But if I had have ate the way that I would have wanted to in the first place, I'd be eating all of the fatty bacon and the fatty cuts of meat and all the fatty bits on lamb. Like that would have been the perfect way to eat growing up. We just didn't know because we thought that fat was the enemy. So it took time. I eased into this over about a month, and that's probably why I didn't get the dreaded like keto flu that everyone warns you about. So it's a solid tip there. Take it slow. But I would say it took about a month for my taste buds to adapt to enjoying heavy fat. And then second was figuring out like what to eat was a massive nightmare. My go-to meals were spaghetti, rice bowls, sandwiches, basically 70% carbs. And when you take carbs off the table, you're left staring at your pantry, hoping for some kind of inspiration on a like carb swap that didn't taste like shit. I had to completely relearn how to cook. Where do healthy fats come from? How do I balance veggies without going overboard on the carbs? Like, what are the starchy carbs that I have to remove? What are the new staple meals that I can just cook up quickly and easily so I don't have to go get Macca's? It was trial and error. There was lots of repetitive eating at first, lots of Googling like low carb dinner ideas. I was looking on Pinterest for low carb meat-based snacks, which is really funny now to think about because now eating high fat just feels like second nature. Third was that social situations become like a little bit difficult, not impossible, definitely more complicated. And if I'm at a party and there's like a charcuterie board, I'm golden. I love cheese. I love prosciutto. Leaving out the rice crackers still hurts a little bit. Restaurants, I have steak, pork belly, lamb, so I'm fine. And it's certainly easier than being vegan at a restaurant. Asking for extra salad and no chips was how I adapted to eating out. But for like dinner parties where someone has just made pasta as the main meal, that's a little bit tricky, and I do have to be flexible when this happens. But the good news is I'm way less strict now, and although I like when I'm actively trying to lose weight, I might tighten things up a bit, but when I'm maintaining or just trying to build muscle, I eat whatever fruits and veggies I want, even the starchy ones. I'm flexible because I understand how my body responds to everything and what levels to keep of the carbs to keep my pain levels low. And I actually purchased a continuous glucose monitor so I can do some testing to see how I exactly respond to some things. So I'm going to try some glucose hacks and see how they apply. These are things like apple cider vinegar, like food order, and how all of that impacts my blood sugar when eating in a restaurant. So subscribe, because I'm actually planning on doing a mini CGM series on that. And that's the real turning point, which is understanding how your body works, because once I learned about insulin, everything clicked. Which leads me into point 4. This is where my epiphany happened. I spent years self-diagnosing, trying to find answers as to why classic diets worked for all the fitness influencers and the personal trainers that I followed, but they didn't work for me. I thought I had PCOS, thyroid issues, vitamin D deficiency, Hashimoto's. I googled everything because I couldn't figure out why I could never lose weight on a normal calories in, calories out diet. And don't get me wrong, I did initially lose weight, but I'd always plateau, and I thought I was a problem, that I was doing something wrong, that my body was surely broken. And this one thing explained why the animal-based diet was the only thing that actually worked for me long term. Once I learned about insulin, and I can thank Dr. Ben Bickman for that, everything made sense. I highly recommend reading his book, Why We Get Sick. It helped me to understand how my diet growing up put me in a high insulin state, and that led to stubborn fat and a body that lowered my metabolic rate the second I tried to restrict in a way that fitness coaches had recommended. Every time I'd eat healthy, whole grains, low-fat yogurt, fruit smoothies, you name it, I was spiking my insulin all day long, and I was wondering why I had these sugar cravings after lunch. My body never even got a chance to burn fat that was stored on my body because insulin was just constantly elevated, telling my body that it should store rather than burn. And see, insulin is your key fat storage hormone. I talked about this in my last video. It's constantly elevated, you're in storage mode, not burning mode. It's kind of like a seesaw, and it's even worse if you're like in a hyperinsulinemic state over years. This can lead to diabetes, dementia, Alzheimer's, and a range of metabolic-based diseases, which Dr. Ben Bickman talks about in his book. After I ended up talking to a metabolic doctor months after fixing my diet, I really wish I'd found her sooner, but she looked into my past blood work symptoms and all of that. At the time, I had like skin tags, hair falling out, bloating, which I'd never experienced before, constant exhaustion, and she said, like, you're probably in a high insulin state, which led to these issues. Obviously, she couldn't give a solid diagnosis. That's just what it sounded like to her because she did not know me back then. But now my blood work is completely different. In her words, it's textbook perfect. So she believes that I'm insulin sensitive now, that my body responds to food the way that it is supposed to. And if you're worried about my cholesterol, my triglycerides and my HDL is perfect. So I'm not concerned with the extra fat in my diet at all, especially considering it's actually sugar which causes the bad cholesterol to worsen, which is your triglycerides. And here's the wildest part. Once I understood insulin and its impact on the body, I recognized the same symptoms in my mum. Turns out she was pre-diabetic, and I helped her find a diabetes specialist. I explained how she should be eating and what helped me, because unfortunately her doctor didn't give her any kind of plan. They just wanted to monitor it. And she lost over 10 kilos without any exercise because she's in way more chronic pain than I am. Her pre-diabetes is now gone. And that's the power of understanding your metabolism instead of just blindly cutting calories and not focusing on what you're eating. This is by far the biggest pro to the animal-based diet. And this is why I see this as a way of eating, not just for the short term, but as a long-term, sustainable, healthy way of eating. I know that I will age better on this diet and not go down the same confusing path that many go down and end up with metabolic disorders later in life from trying to follow classic diet advice. But here's one massive myth that I need to bust before we wrap up because it held me back for way too long. So here's the controversial bit. The whole your brain needs glucose thing is overblown, probably thanks to Ryan Gosling and that meme. Yes, your brain needs glucose, but your body makes glucose from your own body fat. You want this to happen if your goal is fat loss, because this is literally your body burning fat. You don't technically need to eat carbs for your brain to function. Your body will create what it needs. And that's not even considering that the brain can easily run on ketones, and based on studies, it might actually prefer it. I wish that I had known that years ago because I spent so long thinking I needed carbs to function that cutting them out would make me tired, foggy, and miserable. Turns out the opposite happened. I sleep better, I wake up easier, I don't crash at 2 p.m. in the day. My brain works better without the constant blood sugar roller coaster. I also wish I had known how much of the anti-keto, anti-low carb messaging comes from big food companies, not health experts, not scientists. Companies that profit from selling you processed carbs Just think of the term breakfast is the most important meal of the day, created by Kellogg's in order to sell you cereal. If I understood this all at 20 instead of 30, I'd be in a much different place. I'd be more healed, less frustrated, less time wasted on diets, and money spent on like paying coaches. And all of it was just never going to work for my body. But I'm grateful that I figured this out now instead of figuring it out at 50. Look, I'm not here to tell you that this is the only way to lose weight or manage or improve your health. It's not. There are many different approaches, and what worked for me might not work for you. Everybody is different. Your history is different. Your current environment is different, and your metabolism might be different as well. The real work is figuring out how your body responds to food, to movement, to stress, and that just takes some experimentation. But if you've been struggling for years, like I was, and you've tried everything and nothing worked, if you feel like your body is broken or you're just like bad at losing weight, I want you to know it's not you. It's probably things like insulin. And understanding that one thing can change everything. So why am I sharing this? I've been where you are. I felt hopeless. I thought I was doing everything right and still failing. And then when I finally found something that worked, something backed by science, something that gave me my life back, I couldn't not share it. So I really hope this helps even just one person. And if you found this helpful, you'll probably like this video about how I stopped yo-yo dieting and lost 12 kilograms of stubborn weight and lowered my chronic pain. And if you're thinking, hang on, why is this approach better than calories in, calories out for weight loss, then you'll love my future video on why traditional dieting failed me and many others. So hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on that one. Drop a like or maybe leave a comment telling me what surprised you most about the animal-based diet. I'd love to hear your story. And if you want real, honest content about what actually works, then please subscribe. I promise to keep it real, and you've got this.